everyone, welcome back to my channel. By the title of this video, you can see we are going to be talking about day shift versus night shift nursing, which to me are like two completely separate worlds. If you guys don't know this already, I am a pediatric ICU nurse in California. So I specify California because everyone always says like the nursing experience in California is completely different in comparison to other states. So I can obviously only give my opinion based on what I've experienced out here. So full disclosure, just letting everyone know that. Before we jump into it, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and turn on my notification bell so you know when I'm posting new content. Oh, and before we get started, I want to show you guys my t-shirt. So as you guys can see, it's a tooth with a brush. I got it from Professionals in the Making clothing line, which was actually founded and created by one of my closest friends. He's a first-year dental student at UCLA, so he pretty much made this brand to be geared towards all professionals, whether that means doctors, nurses, lawyers, entrepreneurs, etc. So if you guys can, go ahead and check them out on IG at PTM Clothing. Sorry guys, so I work tonight, so I'm trying to, you know, get my coffee in. So like I said, I'm a PICU nurse, and I actually am hired as variable at my hospital, meaning I can choose to work nights or days. I actually do a combination of both, a little bit more nights than days. Kind of preference, kind of based on like the needs of the unit and being the lowest on the seniority pool since I just started a year ago, and they're usually shorter on night shifts. But there's definitely things I don't like about both shifts, and I'm gonna share that with you guys, like my honest opinion. Like, this is my truth, this is how I feel, and I think it's important to say that because I don't want anyone to like get offended if they're like strictly days or get offended if they're strictly nights. This is just how I see things. So we are going to start with day shift. Let's jump into the pros of day shift. So I think one of the biggest pros is definitely the normal work hours. It's definitely a more natural schedule. You know, you're up when the rest of the world is up, you're asleep when the rest of the world is asleep. I think it's also generally better for your health. It goes with your natural circadian rhythms. And also I think it's easier to enjoy your days off because you can, you know, wake up and get the most out of your days, which you don't get to really do on night shift because it's like harder for you to get up early and get your day started. Another pro is that you get to be involved in your patient's plan of care. Rounds are a lot more extensive and a lot of changes happen on day shift, which is a good thing, but it's also kind of hard because you already have like a shit ton to do on day shift. So like having 20 minutes of your morning spent on rounds already kind of like pushes you behind, even though you kind of start day shift as if you're already behind because there's like so much more work to do and there's like so many more interruptions. With that said, another pro is that it definitely goes by a lot faster, probably because you're like moving the whole time, and if you're new it feels like you're kind of running around with your head cut off, but at least you get out of there faster and it makes like your stretches go by a lot quicker. I think another pro of day shift is that you just have more resources around. Not necessarily like nurses, but you have like your dietitians around, PT, OT, social work, in-person translators. It's just nice having more resources around for certain questions you may have or certain questions the parents or the families might have. So that definitely is a pro. And then another like general life pro of like day shift is that everything is usually open, like the cafeteria and the cafes. So if you're someone that like doesn't know how to cook, doesn't like to cook, there's always like breakfast options and lunch options available for you. And if you're like super tired, didn't have time to get coffee outside of work, there's like places you can get coffee, tea, etc. So that's definitely a pro. And then another pro of day shift is that you have management around. So if you're someone that's like super interested in being like a charge nurse or like moving up, management gets to see you shine. But I guess it could be a con if you're drowning because they also get to see you drown as well. So it really just depends on the circumstances. And then lastly, regarding day shift, this could definitely be a pro or a con depending on like what aspects of nursing you're into. If you're super into the psych-soc aspect of nursing, then day shift can be really beneficial because you get to interact a lot more with the patient and their family members because they're awake and they're more active. And if you're someone that's a lot more introverted and has like a harder time dealing with that, it could definitely be a con. Okay, so next let's talk about the cons of day shift. I think one of the cons of day shift is that it can be extremely busy. You deal with like, I'm not kidding, at least 80% of all admits, all transfers, all discharges, all scheduled surgeries, going down to different types of scans like MRI, CT, and so forth, which can be pretty overwhelming in general. And I think going into that, another con of day shift is that as a new nurse, there are like so many interruptions because all disciplines are around. You have PT and OT trying to schedule time to see your patient. You have speech therapy trying to come by, school teachers. And then throughout the whole day, you just have like excessive amounts of people and different provider teams approaching you, like, how is so-and-so doing, without like the consideration of maybe introducing themselves, because you really don't have time to give someone the entire rundown of a patient. Like, if you're from neuro, I'm not going to tell you if my patient is making urine or not. So it'd be nice to have a little bit of an introduction once in a while, but I guess nobody really considers that, and they just think they're somehow supposed to be known by every nurse that works in the hospital. You know, like, I think like everyone means well, but it's just like so chaotic that over time it can be really overwhelming just working on day shift, and all these people just constantly asking you questions that they sometimes can find out on their own in the chart, but you're like the advocate for the patient. You're the one that's like speaking up for the patient. So now let's talk about night shift, which is typically 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. if you get out of report on time. So let's be honest, one of the main pros of night shift is definitely the money. The differentials make a substantial difference in the amount you get paid monthly. Comparing like how much I would make on day shift a month versus how much I would make on night shift a month, it was literally like the cost of my rent. So I do like working night shift in regards to like how much more I make and like how much more I can do for myself. Another pro of night shift is that there are way less interruptions. So as like a newer nurse, you get to like have more time to like understand why you're doing certain things for your patient, giving certain meds, doing certain interventions, and like you have time to like read the notes and really like get to know what's going on. You don't have that time during day shift to be able to do that really, especially if you're like still working on your time management. So it is a better like learning environment in regards to just having some more downtime as a newer nurse. And I'm gonna just be like completely honest and transparent with you guys. Like, anyone that says night shift is just as busy as day shift, that is like a complete lie to me. Night shift is definitely a calmer, a less busier work environment, and that's one of the main reasons I think it's way better for newer nurses, especially when you're first getting your feet wet into the career. Don't get me wrong, there are nights that are like super busy, and it's like it's pretty overwhelming when you don't have all the resources that you would on day shift available to help you out. But in a general sense, it is a lot less busier than days, and that's just how it is. And I don't think that just applies to like my unit, because I worked as a CNA and I did nights and days, and I floated to a variety of units. Even now I float to different units in my hospital, and I think in general, in my experience, it's always been a lot less chaotic on nights in comparison to days. So now we're going to talk about the cons of night shift. I think one of the biggest cons is that research has shown that night shift does actually cut down your life expectancy, but you have more money to have fun with your life, so who really cares, right? And I think lifestyle wise, another con of night shift is like how your days off are. On your first day off after doing like a stretch of nights, like if you try to get up, you spend most of the day being a little groggy, or if you're not one of those people that can force yourself to get up, you kind of lose a day off. In general, I think you kind of lose that sense of like wanting to get up early, and you are in general a lot more tired than you would be if you just work day shift. Another con of night shift is that there are less resources around. You don't have like that in-person translator, social worker, child life to help you with a lot of things that go on with your patient, and that definitely can make your job a lot harder. I think another con of night shift is that like doctors are generally less available. A lot of them do 24-hour shifts, so they have to sleep at some point, and that's usually during night shift. And they do get woken up for emergencies, and in the ICU we always have like the residents around, but it's kind of like half the time they have to escalate up, and you usually don't want to unless it's emergency purposes, because I mean, let's be honest, being up for 24 hours and like barely sleeping can be very hard on their bodies as well. And then I think another con of night shift is definitely like it's so much harder to attend classes and meetings because they'll be at like 10 a.m. or 12 p.m. and it's like you got off at 7:30. Like, when are you supposed to sleep, and how are you supposed to be attentive during these meetings? You're like a freaking zombie. Okay, so after talking about the pros and cons of both shift, I do want to address like this disconnect that I have always seen between like day shift and night shift. And I don't think this just applies to like my hospital either, because I've seen it at like all the hospitals I've been to, whether it's like real subtle or really extreme. There's always been like this disconnect or like whatever, a little beef between day shift and night shift. And like it's interesting to like be able to work days and work nights and like see it from both views. And I think a lot of it has to do with like personality and perception. In regards to like personalities, I think that day shift in general attracts more type A individuals, and I think it makes complete sense based on the fact that like day shift is so much more chaotic that you do have to be a little bit more controlling to make sure that your patient gets the things that they need, regardless of all the interruptions that you have to deal with. And I think like since night shift is just such a different environment, nurses are in general a little bit less type A. Not to say that like, you know, they don't do what they have to do to make sure the patient gets everything that they need, but they're a little bit less controlling. It's just a different world, a different environment, and different environments attract different types of people. I think that also it's like perception of the shifts, especially for people that like only do days and only do nights. They don't really get to see what goes on in each shift. I think like day shifters sometimes perceive night shifters as like lazy because they don't do certain things. Like, I'm sorry, Becky, I did not change that central line at 5 a.m. because I didn't want to wake up my patient. And I'd rather not make them delirious in order to change the central line dressing. And I think like this whole perception thing is like an issue with how night shift sees day shift as well. Like, yeah, your day shift nurse didn't have time to stock your cart or make sure the room was clean or make sure you had your size 5 diapers in the room, Brittany, and it's not the end of the world. It's gonna be okay. And I think as someone who has like seen both sides, like I've been on the day shift side and I've been on the night shift side, it's interesting because I think both shifts need to really understand the things that you do on days is not the same things you do on nights. And like, it's still care. You're still a nurse, you're still trying to do what's best for your patient. And you know, not to say there aren't some nurses that can do a little bit more, but it's just a lot of it has to do with just how you see things. And hopefully one day it's not always like that, and hopefully your hospital is not like that, and both of your day shift and your night shift team get along perfectly, and that would be like, you know, in a perfect world, the perfect unit. But that's my thoughts in regards to like why there is somewhat a disconnect between both the shifts. And then lastly, to conclude this video, my preference. To be quite honest, I don't really have one. I know it's a little bit disappointing, but I think I work a little bit more nights because of the money. I am trying to like save to buy a house, and I think it's also better for like my lifestyle. Like, I have more time to like cook and go to the gym, and it's just, I require a little bit less sleep to like do stretches of nights than doing stretches of days. And I think in general, like, I've made more friends on night shift. It's typically a younger staff, more people that I can relate to. And then as someone like being new, I thought that just the learning environments on nights were a lot better for me. But as I like get farther along in my career and I progress with my skills, I do plan to do more day shifts. I am like into the whole psych-social aspect of nursing, so I do miss interacting with my patients and their families. So for now, I'm going to be rotating, and maybe one day I'll have a preference of both shifts, but I typically just do a few months of each shift, and when I get tired of one, I'll go to the other one. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on my notification bell, and follow me on Instagram at _QueenNia with 2 A's. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found it helpful. And until next time, I will see you guys later.